lbry.com. It's a blockchain-based YouTube-like thing with a extreme focus on consumer data protection and no ads, no etc etc. You can only view someone's content if you have library coin, and they actually tell you how much library coin you are going to spend on seeing that video. And if you don't like it, the rate is set by first the content creator, and on top of it they actually adds the miny earners cost to stream that video, which is very very minuscule, but the main cost is actually comes from the content creator. You should, I think, read the white paper. It's a great thing. I actually made some improvement. I made a kind of a social net. I made a kind of a network for certificators and others. Others based on that paper. My thing is the my thing is I what I did is uh, I issue a kind of token. A token can be a program that actually runs on the blockchain, or a token can be a certificate. It can be transferable to other guys or not. If it's a certificate, then it's not transferable. If it's a and a token can
Let
be
me
about other
sorry.
tokens.
Let me ask. I just want to say one thing. I haven't looked at it, but I think it would be interesting to look at. But maybe also encourage other students to look at it. In light of what we've been talking about, the six elements, like the identity, privacy, token, and let's see whether this platform you just mentioned have all these things. If they don't have all the things, and I think the project will probably will fail. Okay, so it'll be interesting to look at it from the angle of the six element I was talking about, like the identity, privacy, the governance, the security, the uh, I guess you have to have I guess you have a technical organization there, as you say. The architect. I mean, let's look at it. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether that it has all the elements to it.
As I was talking about, I was actually making a first two things I was making. The first thing is some high level Ethereum API, not like Remix IDE. It looks more like Java that compiles into Ethereum code. And the say we would actually have our own designed blockchain when we finish our project, but currently it's just proof of concept and it's
Okay.
on Ethereum. But it's a network of let's say content issuer. A content can be anything. A content can be a content issuer, and then people can rate those contents. Let's say you are
No, no, that's fine. But my point is that again, my only okay. Someone have a question. Let me answer that first. But yeah, you can rate them. But the question is that can we trust the rating? Are they actually people sort of working together and just because how do I trust that the rating is done by someone who is really neutral, for example? So that are the
you
issue.
don't actually trust the ratings. You trust the collective ratings. You trust the overall how many ratings there has been, and what kind of rate, and each raters get rated by other guys who are also part of the network. And as we actually developed an equation that says how reliable that rating is and how much that should contribute to the overall rating of let's say a content or a
Oh,
content
yeah.
creator.
Okay. So I guess we need to see and see whether it's okay. Yeah. So let me someone ask me about this thing about the Merkle tree. I mean, I'll just quickly go over that. So this is a construction of a Merkle tree. So the idea is that you have all these T, right? All their transactions. There are eight of them. Okay, that come in a block, and somehow you either store like all eight of the transaction. Okay, one by one. That's one way of doing it. but it turns out there's a better way, which is this Merkle tree. So the idea is that you instead of storing string or you store just a root hash of all of them. So how do you construct this? Well, first of all, you hash each of the transaction. Okay, so you get h sub a up to h sub h. Okay, and then this is the first level. Well, some people call it the leaves of the tree, so the sort of the bottom level. And then you go one level up. Let's take the left hand side. This one. So h of a, h of p are just two string, right? It's the hash. So you want to sort of hash the concatenation. What do you mean by the concatenation? Let's say you have two string, a snow and ball, they're two string. When you concatenate or you combine them, it becomes a string snowball. So you do the same thing here. So h of a is a string, h of b is a string. You put them together, and then you hash it, and you get this the orange h sub ab. Okay, so this is the hash of the concatenation of the thing below. So you do the same thing for h of c, h of d. You concatenate it and take the hash. Similar for the other two. Okay, so now you're one level higher up, and then you continue the process. Let's say you're now here, and then you take this two string h sub ab, h sub cd. You combine them. Okay, concatenate them, and then you take the hash, and that's how you get h sub abcd. Similarly, that's how on the other side you get h sub efgh. Okay, now you have the instead of eight string or the eight transaction now become two. So the final step is you combine these two and to the hash, and now you arrive at only one string, which is called the root. Okay, this is basically what the Merkle tree is doing. I hope that explained that answer the question.
有第二啲學生等緊。
Sorry，等緊咩啊？
等緊問問題。
Okay.
Simon, hello.
Yes, hello.
Sorry for waiting.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. All right. So I got a couple of questions. Yesterday I checked out Corda on its website, and it seemed like a better option than Ethereum. But the problem is that I don't have background in Java programming language. I have background in C++, C, and Python. So, like, will I be able to follow through your lectures today? Like, would you be giving some basics and stuff?
I think definitely the first part where I explained the concept, you don't need to know any of the programming language.
Okay.
As for Java, we in Hong Kong, I think last week we did a short course on Java.
Yes.
For people who may not have who may have learned other language but not Java. So actually, we could provide you with the link. You can look at our it's like a 2 or 3 hour Java course where we
okay, that's a crash course actually.
Yeah, crash course. Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Okay, thanks a lot.
It's just so that you familiarize with the syntax, right? But since you already know C++, so you know programming, it's just that's now a new language. Okay.
So I had another question, like for enterprise grade applications, do we use which one is better to use, Ethereum or Corda?
I think in the industry, people will not consider Ethereum as an enterprise grade solution.
Okay.
Yeah. So people will consider Corda as an enterprise grade solution, because the bank actually do use it now. Yeah.
Okay.
So no bank uses Ethereum. I mean, as far as I know. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, like it's inefficient compared to that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot for answering my questions.
Sure. Any other questions?
Good morning, Mr. Karim.
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
We're waiting for Professor Reza to come in about 7 or 6 minutes. So we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions.
Okay.
Someone mentioned that no sound. I don't.
So, no sound. Maybe their audio setting is not correctly configured. So it's the lower left corner of the application, and there should be an audio setting. Someone has a question. Oh,
so Gabriel, this is Kareem. So I will come online at exactly 10 o'clock, and I'll then introduce Professor Jamil Reza Chaudhry, and he will give his short address, and then Lawrence, you can carry on with your session.
Okay. No problem. Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
So there's one of the students here have her hand raised, but no sound.
So someone asked, what is the effect of contract? I don't quite understand the question.
Lawrence， 我俾咗個 schedule 俾你睇啊，係佢哋嘅時間。
Where did you send your where did you send？
喺 Telegram 嗰度，咁即係話我哋嘅3點鐘咧，佢哋會去做嗰個 break 同埋祈禱，係咪啊
？Okay, let me take a look first. So I think I might need to change that. So we cover the 203, but then I will probably go to do some order first.
OK。大概佢哋嘅11點，即係我哋嘅1點會交俾阿 Tron 係咪
？No, or their so the maybe I'll call you. I'll call you.
OK 好 OK 得。
আমার সাথে বেড়াবা? আরেকটা গাড়ি আসতে বলছি তো যাকে। ও Good morning and Assalamu alaikum to all participants of the day 2 of the blockchain workshop, the online webinar that is being conducted by the Hong Kong Blockchain Society for the participants of the Blockchain Olympiad Bangladesh. So our national professor Jamilur Reza Chaudhry, who is also the vice chancellor of the University of the Asia Pacific, and he's one of the honorable advisors of the Blockchain Olympiad Bangladesh. He is standing by online for his address. So for the benefit of our advisor, you'd be happy to know that more than 150 teams have so far registered for the Blockchain Olympiad Bangladesh, and altogether around more than 450 participants in these 150 teams. And most of them actually have signed up for this workshop. And although on the online connection, we are showing around 50, 60 people, but each connection is for a team. So effectively, there are probably 150 to 200 participants at any given point in time. So with this, and also for the benefit of the for the information of the honorable advisor, this workshop is being conducted by Dr. Lawrence Ma, the president of the Hong Kong Blockchain Society, who you have met earlier in Dhaka late last year. And he is being assisted in this workshop by Gabriel Chan also of the Hong Kong Blockchain Society. And on the Bangladesh side, the logistics support is being provided by Tahmina Sharmin of Technohaven and Mirza from the LICT project of the ICT division. So with that, let me invite National Professor Jamilur Reza Chaudhry to come online and address the participants. So Gabriel, could you please turn on the microphone and the video for National Professor Jamilur Reza Chaudhry? He is shown among the participants as Jamilur Chaudhry.
Yes, he could be able to unmute his mic. How do I spell his name? Chaudhry?
Yeah, Jamilur Chaudhry. If you go towards the middle of the participants, you will see his name and picture. Right below Istiaq Zahid.
I see. Hello, Dr. Professor.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Lawrence.
Welcome.
Yes. So,
good morning, Professor.
Okay.
Yes.
So, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, so it's audio only, no video.
We can make video.
This workshop is only using audio. Okay, I'll start.
No, video also. Can you turn?
Yes, sir.
Now your video is on also.
Okay. So let me start my sort of brief comments. I'm very happy that yes, to all the
your screen is still black.
Sorry.
The screen is black. So do you have something covering the camera?
Sir.
Kareem,
ভিডিওটা অন করতে হবে স্যার
আমার ভিডিও অন করা তো মনে হয়
না ও পারমিশন দেয়া আছে
আমি তো তোমার নাম দেখতে পাচ্ছি স্ক্রিনে হাবিবুল্লাহ করিম
আচ্ছা জি একটু ওই যে আপনার ভিডিওটা স্যার আপনার ফোনের ভিডিও
no
share video ওটা অন করতে হবে
share video
The video is on, but the problem is there's something covering the camera, physically covering the camera.
Oh, I see.
I can see share screen 63 participants and your name Habibullah Karim.
I see. Okay. I think so. Go ahead.
And also Mirza, I can see his image.
Mirza is from the LICT project. Yeah.
Okay. Otherwise, I will use audio only. If you can hear me.
Yeah, we can all hear you, sir. Yeah, we can go ahead with the audio, sir.
Okay. So let me start by welcoming all the participants in this workshop and Lawrence Ma and others who are helping us in conducting the workshop from Hong Kong. The brief introduction is to the participants, most of whom are young from different universities and maybe a few young professionals who are in the sort of early stages of the career. I will start with this blockchain, although I'm not that familiar with the technology, but having worked with computers for many years, maybe 56 years now, I wrote my first computer program in 1964, and still, seeing the changes, the developments which have been taking place over the last half century. But start with a simple or a very well-known anecdote about disruptive technology. As most of you may be knowing that computers, electronic computers, they were developed simultaneously in a number of countries. In USA, for example, in Pennsylvania, the University of Pennsylvania, they came up with this computer. But what was their motivation? It was mostly to prepare gun-firing tables, cannon, how to aim the guns. All these tables are prepared. And the other motivation was to break into the communication codes of enemies. So these were the reasons why computers were developed, electronic stored program computers 80 years back. But look at the situation now. We have moved far away. So what the developers wanted over the last more than half century, the areas of application have really widened. We have moved into all different areas, including the social media, not only computers, but the telecom networks, the internet networks they have developed. So coming to the relation with, and the worst technical prediction, if you search, anyone has made, was by the chairman of IBM at that time. In 1943, when he saw the first computer, he made a comment. There would be need for 5 computers in the whole world. So that was the prediction made by the chairman of IBM, who were at that time manufacturing tabulating machines only. So the prediction obviously has gone wrong, not only wrong, but by millions of sort of miles, it is off the target. Now we have billions of computers used for different purposes. So now I come to blockchain. Blockchain is also, in my view, a similar technology, maybe used for some purpose. The trees, Merkle trees in 79 and others, they were developed. And then the large scale application, as you might have found out by now, was the cryptocurrency. That was the first sort of global application, Bitcoins. But now we are moving into a large number of new areas of application. And that's why in Bangladesh, we have taken this initiative that we have missed many of the technical revolution due to being our sort of late starting. But in blockchain technology, Bangladesh would like to take not only early starter, but a leading role in future applications and development. So what happened is, I think it was about 5 months back, Habibullah Kareem got in touch with me and said that I would like to introduce this technology in Bangladesh. And we are fortunate that Dr. Lawrence Ma visited us, if I remember, in the last week of October 2019. And we shared some information about blockchain society in Hong Kong. And for the first time, I came to know about the International Blockchain Olympiad, which has already been organized by Hong Kong Blockchain Society for the last 2 years. And the third Olympiad is going to be held in July. Due to coronavirus, in fact, initially we wanted to invite some speakers who would be physically present and conduct the workshop, but I think about 2 months back, we decided it's not feasible with many of the countries gradually falling victims to this epidemic, now pandemic. So this online webinars, the workshops are being conducted. So again, I'm grateful to, yes, Wasif Al Mahmood, I can see the name. Or has he joined? Wasif Mahmood. Anyway, let me continue. At University of Asia Pacific, we have been looking at blockchain technology over the last 3 years. And that also was initiated by Mr. Aziz, the chairman of Leeds Corporation, who came to me and said that they would like to introduce blockchain technology for academic authentication of transcripts, mark sheets. So we launched a pilot project which is ready. We have not yet formally launched it, but would like to introduce it throughout the whole university. We looked at only one department. Now we are going ahead with application of secure academic records using blockchain technology. So that is the development which has taken place in our university. Some of my colleagues have been working with Leeds Corporation. Coming back to the Olympiad Committee in Bangladesh, many of you may be knowing that we have succeeded in securing a gold medal in the International Mathematical Olympiad. I have been involved over the last 17 years, along with Dr. Kaikobad, Dr. Zafar Iqbal, and Mr. Munir Hassan, in forming this Olympiad Committee. And we realized that we must start from the grassroots, because with a very weak mathematics base, when we first participated, I think the total score our 5-member team got was 1 or I think 3, maybe partially solving a problem. But for blockchain, this initiative, we thought that using our experience in mathematical Olympiad success, we could also use it here in blockchain Olympiad. So the workshop which is being held is just to familiarize with the technology and also look at various applications, so that by the time we are ready to participate, first maybe in July this year, our team is well prepared and we'll be going ahead in selecting the team. I'm very encouraged by learning about the large number of participants who have interest in. Okay, I see a message from Wasif Al Mahmood that he switched on his microphone by mistake, but can you hear me now? Mirza?
We can hear you.
Okay, so I'm very encouraged by participants, the enthusiasm which is reflected among all the young students and young professionals. So I'm very confident that particularly with the availability of a large amount of resources and the resource persons who are helping us, experienced in blockchain technology, the different applications, I'm very confident that as we are going to participate for the first time, maybe sending, not only physically, but uh, previously it was supposed to be in Hong Kong, or participants or teams would go, but now most likely it is going to be held online. Depends on Dr. Lawrence Ma, what are his plans. But I'm confident that the 5 teams who would be selected to participate, they would perform quite well. We know that we have a lot of talents, a lot of interest in ICT applications in different fields. So as you go through the rest of the workshop and prepare to participate by submitting the case studies, I think there's a bright future for the blockchain community in Bangladesh. So thank you for joining us. And I thought of actually inviting all of you to our campus, but with the prevailing situation, it would not be possible. Maybe we have to go on interacting online over the next few months. So thank you. I would like to end my comments again by thanking the organizers from Hong Kong, Bangladesh, who are helping us in organizing this workshop. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Okay.
Let me unmute the other.
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much, sir, for your encouraging words. And I'm sure all the participants are also fired up. Blockchain Olympiad Bangladesh. Yes, we are going to closely observe the evolving situation regarding the coronavirus, and but we are going to go ahead with the Blockchain Olympiad Bangladesh, even if we can't physically congregate at the host organization, which is University of Asia Pacific. But we will go ahead with the Blockchain Olympiad, even if we have to conduct this purely online. Well, I mean, since we are working with blockchain technology, which is Industry 4.0 technology component, so maybe this will test our ability to carry on business as usual, despite the challenges of physical congregations. So thank you all very much. So Lawrence and Gabriel, please carry on with your routine for today. And then after lunch, as we finish with your scheduled sessions, at 4 o'clock, Professor Kaikobad and I will come online. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So at 4 o'clock, Professor Kaikobad and I will come and will describe in detail the submission process and the expectations of the jurors for the white paper, for the poster, and for the PowerPoint presentation, based on which the jurors will adjudicate all the submissions, Blockchain Olympiad Bangladesh. And then Dr. Lawrence Ma will also share one example of how such white papers look like, what such posters look like, and what such presentations may look like. And then at 5 o'clock, we have 3 exciting speakers. We will have the president of BASIS address us. Then we'll have, Dr. Sam Samdani of McKinsey address us. And then finally, as the closing speaker for today, we'll have Professor Zafar Iqbal address us. So with that, I see that we already have 78 participants and teams already online. So that's wonderful. Lawrence, back to you now.
Okay, thank you, Kareem. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Today I will start on this section on blockchain governance, which was supposed to be yesterday, but we sort of run out of time. But let me start with this today. So again, we go back to this picture of the 6 elements. So governance is one on the bottom right. The governance actually, a lot of it is not technical, they're non-technical issue. But I would say that if you want one day we want your project to go live, the governance is very, very important, because if the governance does not work out correctly, um, the likelihood of your project will fail would be very high. So let's see what. So what is governance? Governance here we see there are. It's basically you have any structure, right? Whether it's a blockchain network, the government, or any kind of organization, there are certain rules, right, that every user or participant agree to follow. Now, of course, here we have the participant, we have the rule, and we also have the people who make the rule, the rulers. Okay, and especially when the organization or network grow, this governance, the rule become more and more essential. Okay, and so this rule, okay, whether it's the real world, I guess in the government or digital world, now we talk about the blockchain, we share the same underlying principle. So what are the first of all, what are the different type of? There are many different type of governance format that style they employ today, but basically all of them can be really summarized in two main style types. One is what we call direct governance. That means that every participant or user will actually vote on every decision or any action that be taken without it. Okay. The other one is maybe more familiar in the real world. It's like what we call representative governance. That means that instead of everyone make all the decision together, we elect a few representative. Okay, and then they will go to take all the responsibility to decide on the rule or this the new rule and to implement them. So of course there are pro and con of these two approach. Of course, direct governance. That the good thing is that so everyone so calm. Everything is very transparent because there's no intermediary. Okay, you have more control, or the user will have more control. Anyone government official are not doing, or the ruler who are not behaving correctly can be removed quickly. And the voting has become a responsibility, not just a privilege, because everyone sort of participate. Now, of course, this also have its bad side, because it could be if everyone participate, it might be difficult to reach any kind of decision. Okay, and also you also, in order to have a good decision, you sort of need to educate every participant on the topic, and that may be very costly. Okay, and again, if the size of the organization become big, it's very hard to manage. Again, and also some people maybe they don't want to participate. Now, what if you go to the other type, which is the representative type? Now, of course, I mean they'll be more efficient, right? And the decisions can be maybe much faster. And also the fact that you select this group of representative. Hopefully, these are the knowledgeable people, and then it's much easier to manage. But of course, the bad thing is that the representative may work in the self-interest once they're elected and don't really represent the people, and they might not, I don't know, act according to the trust of the people. And there could be corruption. Okay, everything. So whether so which one of the governance you want? I mean, it really depends on the case. So now I would skip this part. Okay, this is the part where it's about governance for a blockchain network. Let's say Corda or Bitcoin. But since I guess we are not building, I don't think anyone's really building a blockchain network here. So I would not go through this. Instead, I would jump to the part which is more relevant, which is the part where is the discipline when you build a blockchain application or blockchain solutions. I think this is more relevant to you here, because you will be building or working on some project or some idea. Okay, so so for that, okay, what are the essential feature? Okay, so I would first of all, if we look at especially we look at a blockchain application that are built for enterprise. Okay, okay, this is not the cryptocurrency, but for the enterprise. So as we were talking about yesterday, so enterprise will be using some kind of what we call a private or permission chain. So there will be membership that need permission to be to get in. For that, okay, there are actually three areas of governance that I want to highlight that you should look at. One is the technology side, the technology infrastructure, and this part deal with the decision to make the decision of what kind of IT infrastructure you want to use for the project, what kind of resources, what kind of performance, what kind of security level you want to achieve, what are the risks, what are the cost structure. So that's the technology infrastructure. Okay, I will the next slide I will go into more detail what are the list of things that we have to look for. Of course, the other one is the since it's the permission chain, there are membership, so that the other is the this other is the network membership governance, and this is the part that will look at what the rule, like what are the rules to onboard and offboard participant. I mean, how do we grant permission? Who should we permitted to come into the network? What kind of support we can give to all the member? What about the cost? I mean, how is it going to be distributed to all the participants? I mean, how you can distribute the cost? So this is now under the network membership. And the last, if not the third one, would be what we call the business network governance. And this is the part that was focused on the for example, what should be the business model? What should be the service that we're going to provide? What are the incentives? What are the compliance? What are the regulations? Especially if your solution is meant for some like for regulated industry like the banking industry or the insurance industry. There are existing regulation, and you have to comply to, and that will be dealt under the business network governance. So let's go to more detail. Okay, I will give you a checklist of the three type of governance, and then I will go into example. I mean, how we will look at these three type of governance. So again, the tech infrastructure. This is the thing we should look at, look for. I mean, what kind of is some kind of distributed ledger. So what is the distributed management, the IT management structure? What should be the model to maintain? What kind of framework? I mean, do we use will use some industry standard? You want to optimize the resource. You want to assess the technology, what technology you should use and to adopt. And also, we want to go live. You have to look at the deployment on the network. I mean, whether you put on a cloud, a public cloud, private cloud, or you want to use your own server. Okay, and what kind of support? And of course, not the how to manage the risk. So this is the tech infrastructure checklist. Let's now. What about the network governance checklist? Okay, here the thing that you should look for is the what are the rules for onboarding and offboarding the member. Okay, how do you design a equitable and fair cost structure? I mean, should everyone share the same amount, or some people will have to pay more? What about data ownership? There'll be data generated. Who should own the data? Okay, what's the regulatory oversight? The provisioning. What is the permission structure? I mean, like who make the decision? Who permit the people to come? What are the service level agreement? Okay, the management of that. The network support, again, the optimization risks and the operation of the network. So this will be the checklist for the network membership. And what about the business network? So the thing checklist will consist of what are the charter, okay? Is this going to be a consortium or JV, things like that? What is the management of this network, and the management of the share service, yeah, the business level agreement, like what kind of quality is assured, okay, what's the performance that you assure? I mean, what kind of network security you are going to ensure. Other things we will include the business exchange condition, the industry specific requirement. Okay, I mean, if it's the banking, then you have a banking requirement. If it's the logistic, you have a logistic, okay, specific requirement. And also the legal and the regulatory compliance, especially if your solution is meant for a industry that is regulated. And also, what about the business operation structure? So these are the sort of the. I mean, of course, this is not exhaustive, but this gives you a good flavor of what kind of in the three types of governance. So let's to give you help you have a better understanding. I will go through one example. Okay, this is actually an example from a logistic solutions. Okay, so here you will see so who are participating in this. You will see the banks, their supplier, okay, their buyer. Okay, in the middle you have people doing shipping. Okay, transportation. You have the port. You have the customs. If the supplier and the buy in different countries, so the you have custom in the two different countries. So this is sort of the let's say you're building a solution for handling a logistic supply chain. Okay, so how would the governance look like in this situation? So let's look at the business network. Okay, so we talk about in the checklist. The checklist will including what the charter. So that the charter will include what the overall network business outcome. Okay, that what does that mean? That means that you look at what are the outcome you want to achieve. Is that you want to reduce the cost, or you want to increase the revenue? Okay, or you want to increase the speed, the delivery speed. Okay, it could be all of them. It could be one of them. I mean, that is part of your charter that all the people have to decide. Okay, of course, then it will including what are the contribution of each of the participant. What are the costs? Okay, the resource. Okay, and what are the incentive? Why should they join? Is it because they will get it will lead to more efficient in what they're doing, or they have a better control of the process, or things are become more transparent, or they have monetary reward? Okay, this have part of the thing you have to design the business network governance. Now, for example, I mean, let's say in this example, the agreed business model that is going to be a consortium. Okay, and then in this consortium, there will be a set of founding member. Let's say there'll be the founding member consists of 3 supplier, 3 buyer, 2 bank, and maybe a shipping line carrier. And there are also non-founding member, which are, let's say, some of the custom, the port authority, or the freight forwarders. So let's say this is the agreed business model. And then what else you have to decide? Well, you have to decide what are the authority of the founding member, non-founding member. Maybe the non-founding member can only endorse transaction. They cannot issue any transaction. They cannot validate a transaction. So maybe that can only be done by the founding member. Okay, this is part of the decision you have to make under the business network governance. What about the business contracts? Okay, the business condition. I mean, for example, in this case, I mean, you have a lot of documents, the purchase order, the invoice, and so forth, and then you have to decide. I mean, are they you can digitize all these things, and if they digitize, are you going to be managed by smart contract? Okay, these are also need to be decided under the business network. governance. And also then you have to talk about what are kind of the surface level agreement. Okay, the SLA. For example, people do they get monthly reporting? Can they audit all these things? Can they track all the assets? What happens if there are people did not deliver the quality of service is not according to the SLA? Are there any penalty? Okay, so all these things have to be decided. Okay, in the business network governance. And of course, I mean, as you notice that here is more the business networks all deal with the business side. So there's not much technology here yet. It's all very business oriented. Okay, and also because assume that the solution is going to be aimed for cross-border trading, so that each country, okay, in the trade, in both countries, they will have their own regulations and compliance policy, okay, that the buyer and supplier need to agree, and then you have the governance and also decide what are the agreement, okay, and would they be added on the smart contract? I mean, this have to be decided, and then what about all the things to ensure that the participant and their data, their privacy, the integrity and performance. Okay, these are also need to be decided, and then the risk identification and the risk mitigation policy has to be included in this the business network governance. Okay, so this is a list of things you might need to go through. What about let's go to for this example, let's go to the network membership governance. Okay, so we talk about the business already. So let's talk about what about the membership. Well, what are the things that you have to rule that you have to establish? Well, you have to establish the rule for each type of participant. Okay, who have the authority to invite the new participant to join the network. Okay, is it only the founding member to do it, or can the non-founding member participate? Okay, you have to make up the rule for that. What about the rule for onboarding and offboarding new supplier? Okay, or new banks, new carrier. Okay, so what are the rule? I mean, they might onboard. Okay, they can also leave. I mean, when can they leave? I mean, under what condition they can leave? Okay, that's offboarding. Again, the very important that you have to decide what the access and operation right to the data and transaction in the blockchain. I mean, who can access all this data? Or some people, or maybe some people can only access part of the data or part of the transaction record. Okay, this have to be decided. Again, what about the participant fee structure? Okay, for each type of participant. Okay, do they have to pay a fee? I mean, how much do they have to pay? Okay, as a member of the network. The other thing then you have to look at, okay, is how to do this, the management of the share network, okay, including the tracking of the assets, and also the penalty. Okay, so each of the participants will have some kind of service level agreement that they have signed. So what are the penalty if they did not deliver the service? I mean, do they get will they be punished monetarily, or have to pay a fine, or that is also something the governance have to decide. And what about the communication policy? Okay, to share the correct information with the correct participant at the correct time. Okay, that also have to be decided under the network membership governance. Okay, and the last bit will be on the technology infrastructure. So, for example, that will include like what kind of blockchain should we use? Should we use Corda, Hyperledger Fabric? Okay, you have to assess that and then select. And then after that, of course, you have to deploy the blockchain. You are going to deploy the node on the public cloud. If it's a public cloud, which one? Is AWS? Is it Microsoft? How is a private cloud? Okay, you have to decide that. You also have to decide the setting up of the blockchain node. Okay, how many nodes you want? Okay, and who will control that node? Okay, who will be the orderer node? Who will be the notary node? All these things. Okay, also included in this is the project management. Okay, what is the what are you going to test the thing? What is the milestone timeline to deploy the smart contract? Okay, and also you have to okay decide on the security, okay, and the access. I mean, who can access the node, okay, and who can access the chain code, okay. Also, that what about the penalty, okay? How to execute the incentive and penalty, okay, to ensure that the quality of the infrastructure, okay, and the risk management. What about the infrastructure operation? Okay, what kind of storage are you going to do? What kind of network? I mean, how are you going to make a decision to change or upgrade or release the new version of the technology? What about this is also very important, the business continuity management. I mean, what happened if the network are down? I mean, you have to ensure the high availability. I mean, what's the downtime? Okay, what happened if one of the network for whatever reason, okay, uh, cannot be accessed due to various reasons? So you need a disaster recovery. Okay, for example, for some of the more critical deployment, okay, you might want to deploy your solution, okay, maybe for different cloud provider, okay, or even you use the same cloud provider but in different region, okay, for the disaster recovery, or maybe you might have one of the network being set up, say in Bangladesh, but then you might have a disaster recovery also, not just in Bangladesh, but maybe even in overseas. Okay, so these are part of the business continuity management. And also, what about also the management about the scalability? How when let's say your solution become more and more successful, there are more and more people member come in, there are more and more transaction. I mean, how are you going to deal with the increasing capacity, the scalability, and performance? Okay, what are the policy for that? And also, what about if there are incidents? Okay, the incident management, like monitoring all this or whatever that happened. Okay, so these are all need to be decided under the technology infrastructure governance. So that's it. So what I have done is the summarize. Okay, so we have sort of give you a picture of, let's say you launching a business enterprise blockchain solution. So I highlighted there are three type of governance you should look at: the technology infrastructure, the business network, and the network membership. Um, from my experience, when I look at a lot of the white paper or a solution of people, they spend a lot of time looking at the technology infrastructure governance. Okay, because they think that okay, this is a blockchain technology, so that you need to look at these things. That's fine. That's all good. But then a lot of them do not, or sometimes put very little attention, or not enough attention on the business network and the membership. Okay, but as I was trying to say here, all three are important. Okay, you need all three type of governance. Uh, so let me stop here and see if anyone have questions about this part, about the governance. Any questions? And so you notice that a lot of these things that I just talked about is not technical. I mean, like the business, so very business oriented. I mean, in the business network, and some have also to do with the compliance and regulation. And a lot of these are not technology. Okay, they have to deal with what is the existing regulation, what is the existing compliance. So if you want to apply build an application for the say the banking sector, okay, you should really have to have some domain knowledge of work with people who have the domain knowledge of what are the bank regulations. Okay, or let's say you want to do one for insurance company, insurance application, then you should, I mean, really work with, talk to the industry, in the insurance people. What are their especially on their compliance and the regulation side. Okay. So the technology is only part of the whole thing. Any questions or comments?
Yes, there is, but I have some trouble with the unmuting problem right now.
But you control that, right?
Yes, I'm supposed to control that, but I have some problem. Okay. Okay, Siobhan Mohammed?
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, I have a question about the network when there are participants about both from the government and from the private sector. Then how will be governed? You think for a supply chain network for food or any other thing that will controlled by the government, but the businesses will be an active participant.
Yeah. So that's why for the governance side, right? Of course, then for the private, then the business, okay, part of business governance, then is decided by the private sector. But if this is government, so a lot of them, there will be government regulation and compliance that you have to make. So that's why you need to also look at that too.
So the founding members will be both the government and the business sectors, and there will be a mix of.
Depends. I mean, it could be. I mean, who are the founding member? I mean, it depends on your use case. I mean, it could be a government, or it doesn't have to be. But my point is that, okay, even if the government is not the founding member, I mean, whatever you do, you need to make sure that it's compliant to the government policy and the rule. Or one way that people explore is the following. Let's say you build a blockchain solution with all the node, right? So the government, even though he might not be a founding member, or he might not even participate in the transaction. You could have a node for the government to look at. It is for, let's say, sometimes for auditing purpose or whatever. Okay, like a regulated node who might not look at all deal with the transaction or deal, but they might want to look at the overall picture of the whether there are any kind of systematic risk. Okay, so this is how the government also come in. And in this case, the government will not be the founding member. Okay, will be some kind of participating member as a regulator. But it could be government could be a founding member. It depends on your case. Yeah.
It actually depends on the use case, right?
Yeah.
And the regulation of the government of that specific country.
Yep.
So if I follow the regulations and other things and like that, it will be all right, right?
Yeah, I mean, for example, that's why I think in a lot of countries, what they do right now, for the regulated industry, the government will set up a sandbox. Okay, and I really encourage people to do that. Why? The sandbox is like, let's say you are in the finance, right? So, for example, in Hong Kong, I can share with you, in Hong Kong, the HKMA, which is the Hong Kong Central Bank, they set up a sandbox what does it means that you allow, let's say you have a new blockchain solutions, a blockchain to deal with in fintech or in banking, but the sandbox is this environment that allows you to work with the regulator. And the reason why I have a sandbox is that because you're doing something new, it's possible that some of what you're doing, it might conflict with some of the existing rule. So the sandbox is a way that you can have an environment where you can try all these things, even though they might sort of violate or conflict with existing rule. So that is how in Hong Kong how they do that. Okay, with a sandbox.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any more remark questions?
Hello.
Yes.
I want to know, is there any relation between MSP in Hyperledger Fabric and governance?
Mm-hmm. What you mean? What is the relationship?
MSP mean membership service provider in Hyperledger Fabric.
So no. So yeah. I mean, so the governance will decide on when you set up the Fabric network. The governance will decide what is the setup, because the Fabric we set up, there are a lot of parameters, right? You have to choose. Like who are the nodes, how many of them, who are the orderer, who that is the decision of all these things, of setting all the parameter is governed by the governance.
Okay.
Okay. Let's say I mean, for example, if your solution is involved many different party, right? Like the example I gave you. So then all these things have to be agreed upon with all the of the member. Well, maybe not all of them, but at least at least for all the founding member. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I mean, one thing is very important is that I mean, I want to sort of reiterate the point that is that the power of the potential of blockchain is really when you have a network where many people, different participants, sort of participate. If the blockchain is only for one company, yes, it may help you to, let's say, make certain process more efficient, but you really don't see the power or the potential. Okay, you really the blockchain is for a sharing kind of network, and for that, then that means there will be member from different organization, and then that's why the governance is important, because all these people have to come and agree on the rule. I mean, how you're going to run this network, either in terms of the technology, in terms of the business, and in terms of the membership.
Thanks.
Yeah. And there are no like I mean hard way for like what's the best way. I mean that could probably different way of doing the same thing, but I mean whether which way is good or bad. I mean sometimes there are a lot of politics involved. Okay, so because you have different participants. I mean, so it's a mixture of I mean something technical, something non-technical. Okay. But my point is that if you want your blockchain network solution to succeed in the long run, the governance have to be dealt with. Okay, if not, if you dealt with poorly, the chances that even if you launch your network or your solution, it will probably fail very fast.
Understood.
Okay, next question.
Yeah.
Ahmed?
Okay, I'm finished.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the aspect of international trade, can blockchain be a feasible solution? Because there is a lots of government side, and their policies are different from. Each government has a different policy.
Right.
So, can blockchain be a feasible solution?
Now, it is very challenging. I mean, especially But having one set of law regulations is already challenging, but having many sets even more challenging. No, but I think it is precisely because there are so many people, participants with different things, and blockchain probably have a better chance to succeed in making this thing work. I think. I mean, trade, international trade has been challenging all throughout. I mean, that's why there's still a lot of issues. I mean, like in terms of the efficiency, still a lot of fraud. Right? But precisely it's because because of this nature of that there's so many different participants, and the fact that, as I was saying yesterday, the fact of having a single truth is so important. I think definitely people are working towards that, and then and there are already a project that going on where different country, I mean, in terms of the trade, they work together. Okay, in Hong Kong, for example, there are some project going on to do a trade between say mainland China and Hong Kong. Okay, because they both, even though Hong Kong is part of China, but they're still under different law and regulations. So this would be a good test case. Okay, but I think the other country are probably doing similar thing.
Okay.
But it's very challenging. I totally agree.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, hi, yeah, hi.
Can you hear me? Hi.
Yes, yes.
Hey, my question is about the technology infrastructure of this. What are the skills and what type of man I should feel, and how should this thing process? Can you tell me, please?
You mean in terms of the human resource or in terms of?
Yes, in terms of the human resource.
Okay, so yeah. So I guess for the tech infrastructure, right? I mean, you probably need some. Besides the people who actually write the code, developer, which I think actually that come later. Right? I think the first important is first of all to understand what's the business flow. Okay, that might come from the business side of the people, but then having a business flow, then you have to talk with someone from the technology.
I mean, any kind of any special language like Java or Python or C++?
No, I don't think that's important. I mean, that's more for the actual writing the code. But you need someone who what we call a solution architect that can talk to the business people, okay, and translate the business flow into a flow of the that will include what into a flow of the data flow in terms of the state flow. I mean, you need someone like that who are able to translate that. It's only once you have all these the flow diagram in terms of the data and the state, okay, then the developer can develop. But I think the difficult part of the hard work is not on coding the thing, but it's come up with that flow diagram.
It's a bit technical thing.
Yeah, I mean that's for my experience. When we're developing a blockchain project, I would say maybe 2/3 of the time is really in coming with that diagram. I mean, a very detailed diagram that really have addressed what the business requirement, right? If that thing is not done correctly, I mean, you start implementing, and very soon then you think will not work, and they have to go back. Then it wastes a lot of time. So my advice is that really, I mean, have someone, okay, what we call a solution architect, who talk to the business people, understand the requirement, and come up with those flow diagrams, like the data flow, the state flow. Okay, then the developer can go in and write the code. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. Now, of course, also while you're doing that, you also have to think about, I mean, how to deploy the thing and all. But these are extra things.
Hello.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. My question is in diagram slide, SCD trust.
Yep.
I have seen that the reduced cost
yep.
Before speed to delivery. My question is, how it happened? The reduced cost matter.
It reduced costs is because there could be before there are a lot of middlemen, and then that the cost.
Sorry for interrupt.
Yeah.
Before SC trust net structure is reduces increasing.
Sorry, did you hear your last word?
Before reduced cost structure. I mean, there have are there any measurement about reduce cost?
Sorry, are there any?
I mean, for scttrust.net, I see that it is a valuable feature. Reduce the cost. How it works?
No, I mean, it could be. I mean, depends on your actual detail, but the cost could be reduced because there might be, you might eliminate some of the middleman, for example. Eliminate some of the intermediary. That can reduce costs, or it could be reduced costs because before a lot of things are processed manually. Okay, now you do it automatically.
Oh, I mean, before manual and now automatically.
Yeah, then, digitally automatically, for example.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
There are a couple of ways why the costs are reduced. Yeah, reason. It could be because you get rid of all the manual work and you get rid of a lot of the middle people and the middleman.
Any other questions?
Yeah, maybe let's take one more question. Okay,
thank you for the
presentation
here. So I'm just trying to figure out, like, if there is a multinational, like parties are involved. For example, one supplier is delivering products to two different countries. So suppose that supplier is already maintaining a blockchain system. So if another countries come and ask their participation in another blockchain system, so how well that can be managed? So,
well, I mean, it's going on right now in the world. You can take a look. For example, if you look at the trade finance, right, there are already a few consortium that comprise of banks from different countries. Okay. In the insurance, for example, there are two big consortium. One is in Europe, called the B3I. It comes from insurance company from all over the world. A lot of them are reinsurance company actually. It could come from the US, from Europe, mostly probably Europe. R3, for example, is the coder, right? Is really the is it a consortium? Okay, that it's also some kind of consortium too. Although, but no, I mean, my point is that there are already such consortium are being formed, and the member are very international, come from different countries. Okay.
We should connect with those consortium, right? We should connect with that consortium.
Yeah, for example, yeah. For example, I know that if you are interested in trade finance, there are a few of these consortium that are being set up. I mean, if you want to participate, you might want to talk to them. I mean, the good thing is that they have already built the infrastructure, right? Okay. They want to extend their the network to more people. Okay. But then that's part of the governance, right? Then of course they have to go through the network membership, right? Like they have rule, like who will be on board. Okay. I mean, they already set up this. That's their membership governance. Okay.
So is there some sort of dependency there? Like I was trying to figure out, like, for example, I want to track a product from the origin, and then so that supplier needs to connect with my blockchain solution or needs to participate with my consortium, right?
Right.
And maybe he is participating in another consortium. So that is my question actually, Jay. I mean, how well that can be managed? Is that kind of repetitive stuff is happening over there?
Well, I mean, what I have to say, all I can say right now is everything is very new. Okay, it's first time that people are doing it. I I know definitely people. There are definitely entities who are participating in different consortium that happen. Okay, so it's not say that you can only restrict it to one consortium. Then again, then of course there'll be issue about what there would there be conflict or whatever. I mean that need to be worked out. Okay. So to answer the question, I mean there are people who are member of different consortium. Yeah. Okay, so maybe I will stop the Q&A for this section. Let's see what time is it. Let's take a like a 3-minute break. Okay, let's come back at 11:15. Then I will continue to the next section. Let's take like a 2 or 3 minute break. Okay, so I'll see you in 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, I'm back. So let's continue. So I want to there's one part I saw skip. I'll come back in the afternoon, which is the solution architect, where I will give you one example in detail. What are the things you should look at when you build the architect solutions in terms of how you're presenting it. Okay, we'll do it in the afternoon. But instead, I want to jump ahead and talk about this section on Corda. Okay, so what we're gonna do is the first part will be for the next maybe 45 minutes. I give you a introduction overview of what is Corda and what are the essential elements of Corda, and then my colleague John will come in, will join me afterwards and actually go through with you. Make sure that you know you have download, you can download all the Corda, and then we'll give you some actual example of coding a smart contract in Corda. Okay, so that is the plan. So let's start. So now Corda is a what we call an enterprise blockchain, meaning that it is going to be designed to use by enterprises, especially in Corda case will be financial institution. So these are the five I would say five pillar that such a enterprise blockchain should have. It should be it's a permission private chain. It still have decentralization, the immutability, and you have to assure the data integrity, and you have to have scalability, right? Something like the Bitcoin and Ethereum is probably not enough. I mean, in terms of the scalability. So you want to be able to handle maybe each second thousands or tens of thousands of transactions, and of course the security, and I will have to add the privacy here. So these are the five pillars for such an enterprise blockchain system. So in particular, we'll talk about one such system, which is Corda. Okay, so Corda, their a mission, okay, of so Corda is developed by a company called a U.S. company called R3, the alphabet R and number 3. Okay, their objectives, they want to establish an architecture, okay, it's an enterprise grade architecture. It's open, shared platform for very specifically for they say the immutable recording of financial event and execution of the financial business logic. So this is the objective. Okay, the enterprise grade, okay, and it's very, very specific for financial application. Okay, this is the official website of Corda. I really encourage you to go there. It's corda.net. Okay, there are many very wonderful, very valuable information there. For example, you can see there's one they call document. You can go in. Okay, it will have a lot of tutorial and a lot of document. As a matter of fact, the presentation we're doing today is a lot of them come from the material on the official site. It's definitely a good way to continue to learn Cordas to go to the site. Okay. So let me remind you what distributed ledger what it's trying to achieve. I've said this many times: a single truth. Okay, that everyone sees the same thing, trusts the same thing, and works on the same thing. So the distributed ledger are such network that allows you that basically it allow parties who don't fully trust each other. I mean, could be different banks, could be banks and the supplier. Like the case example I gave could be banks, the buyer, seller, the ship line carrier. Okay, they don't necessarily trust each other, but they are participating in the same transaction. So they want to form and maintain consensus about the existence and the status and the evolution of all this transaction. Okay, so this is what the DLT would hope to achieve. Now, okay, let's talk about more specifically on Corda. So Corda is a DLT, distributed ledger platform, and this is built from ground up. Okay, as I say, is to record, manage, and synchronize agreement. And this agreement actually legal contract, and it's designed for use by regulated enterprises, especially financial institutions. Okay. So what are some of the thing the trade-off? Okay, they when they design the Corda, okay, the architecture, okay, is really rooted in managing a few set of things that will include privacy and confidentiality. As I've been emphasizing, this is very, very important in any kind of enterprise application. Okay, the privacy and confidentiality of your customer, all the data, the scalability, the security, the complexity, and all such. All obviously, I mean, it's impossible probably to have everything. I mean, so the design has to be trade-off maybe among all these features. Okay, because the more secure is probably the scalability will have some issue. Okay, and the complete will be more complex. Okay, so there may be a balance. Needed to have a balance. And the design principle, okay, of Corda is in order to maintain an optimal balance is that it's intended for the domain is intended to operate within, and the business problem is designed to solve. Okay, so in particular, if you want to do any kind of transaction that the privacy of the transaction and the confidentiality is very, very important, Corda is probably the best choice among all the blockchain network at the moment. Okay, so Corda is optimized for that. Okay, so for something where the privacy or the confidentiality is not as important, maybe Corda may not be the best solution. Okay, but of course, even though they are very focused, they also have a lot of flexibility. Okay, to tweak some of the trade-off. For example, they for the consensus, right? When we talk about the consensus, is very important. They say it's pluggable, but I have to caution you that the code is supposed to be designed to be in a way that you can put any kind of consensus algorithm. Like you can put in your like last yesterday we talked about all this kind of by setting factoring. You put in that, or you can put in proof of work for I mean, I don't know why you want to do that, but you can do that too. But currently I don't think this feature is supposed to be there, but I don't think it's fully implemented. So I don't think this is still not very flexible. I don't think you can put in any kind of consensus. I right now they only allow one or two. Okay, but later on, supposedly you should be able to put in any kind of consensus onto Corda. Some of the highlight high level feature. Okay, so permission network. Again, is because for regulated enterprise, I mean, a permissionless network like blockchain, Bitcoin, or Ethereum is not appropriate, right? Because you are not it's regulated, right? Of course, you don't want all the data to have to be protected in terms of privacy. So you cannot allow any permissionless where anyone can join. Second is a peer-to-peer broadcast. Remember yesterday when we talked about the consensus, the Bitcoin uses what we call a broadcast protocol. So whenever there are some new transaction, someone will broadcast to all the participants. Okay, so obviously this kind of approach is going to be you don't have the confidentiality. Okay, will not be observed. So Coca-Cola do not do that. So they use a peer-to-peer kind of messaging. Okay, they don't broadcast the transaction. It's a peer-to-peer kind of communication. And they use something called messaging queue, which are something very standard and have been around, very robust. Okay, they also allow you to, because when you are building a network for, say, a transaction for enterprises, of course they will have some kind of legal contract off the chain. So, I mean, between the participant. So somehow the way that Corda is going to rely in terms of conflict, when there's a conflict, they will rely on the enterprise, okay, to go to the court, okay, to resolve the conflict. They're not going to resolve the conflict on the chain. Okay, so to do that, they have a way to let's say between two counterparty of a transaction. Let's say they already have a legal contract. I mean, so what caller does is they allow you the solution, right? The caller solution allow you to hash the contract, legal contract, and put it onto the smart contract, in together with the smart contract that govern this transaction. Okay, so in case there are conflict and people who go to that hash and then say, well, look, I mean, this is what we have agreed legally, and this is you cannot deny it because that is hashed and put onto the smart contract, and both sides have digitally signed it. Okay, and they will put this and bring this to the court, right, to resolve the conflict. Okay, obviously in Bitcoin and Ethereum, this thing we don't have this kind of feature, and it uses something called the unspent transaction output. Okay, this is the way that is used by Bitcoin. Okay, I will not go into detail how do you do that, but I just want to make a comment. I mean that if you want to make the transaction, you can parallel. If the transaction can be executed in parallel, you need a UTXO model as opposed to something called account model, which is used by Ethereum. Okay, that they use account to handle your that one is much more difficult to do parallelize the transaction. So Ethereum so called actually adopt the Bitcoin kind of transaction model, which is the UTXO, and the hope was really they want to do a parallelizing the transaction. Again, another thing they will reuse meaning that whenever possible they will use any kind of industry standard bank friendly library and technology. I mean, here you can see that they're really focused on the bank. Okay, so they want to do technology that the bank have been using as possible. The bank understand, and instead of reinventing and come up with new technology, which probably the bank will not be comfortable. And of course, as I say, it also have offer flexibility. I said one with eventually you can have a pluggable consensus, you can have flexible transaction model, and you can have state. Okay, we'll talk about what the state mean, but the state can be contain any arbitrary information. I mean, so could be very broad, and we'll use the symbol. It will work with your legacy database and your legacy message broker. So the call is built in a way that you don't have to throw away your existing database. You can actually work for them. Okay, and that's important because the bank will, of course, all these organized enterprise will have their legacy database. I mean, they still want to keep using, right? Okay, so a call that allows you to just talk to them, okay, through API. So let's take a look at what is the caller. Okay, as I say, caller is a permission. So the nodes here, okay, let's say you have these three member, these Titan Technology Partner, Bay Transcorp, and Colorado River Authority. Okay, they are the member. Okay, they need permission to come in, and they communicate on a need to know basis. Okay, so for example, if there is a transaction between Titan Technology and Colorado, okay, so unlike Bitcoin where you broadcast the transaction, so in this case, Titan will communicate directly with Colorado. The Bay Transcorp, even though they are also on the node on the network, they will not know anything about that transaction. Okay, so that's what we mean by a need to know basis, and that is one way of harder to handle the privacy. So people who are not involved in the transaction will know nothing about that transaction detail. And obviously, you have the notary pool, as I mentioned yesterday. The notary is the way that caller use to do the consensus. So caller will have assigned the field of the node, okay, to be the notary. Okay, these people, everyone know who they are. Okay, so that if anything go wrong, you can actually they're held liable. Okay, and they are the people who are going to validate, make sure there are no double spending or whether the transactions are valid. Okay, so there's no mining, none of those. Okay. So a little bit more technical back detail. So the caller network, as I say, is no global broadcast, communicating on peer-to-peer basis, and they communicate using messaging queue. And there will be something called network map service who sort of publish, like, you look at the network map that you know who are the peer right now on the network. Okay, so any two node on the graph have the potential to communicate. Okay, if they have a transaction between them, but they don't necessarily persistent if they are not if there are no transaction between them. So think of like an email, okay, as an SMTP. So that's the called network. As I say, you use some kind of pluggable. So for example, it might be using BF Byzantine for torrent. Okay. And here is something I want to explain a little bit. This is a concept in Corda. It's called flow. Okay, you will see this in more detail. Or actually, you have a chance to maybe look at the code or how we code this. So Corda, okay, is a way, or the smart contract, the Corda smart contract. Okay, it's a way to encode all the transaction between a different party, right? So the transaction could be very complicated, right? So in this case, this transaction is not that complicated. It's only between two node A and B. So first of all, this is a flow of how the transaction will occur, right? So maybe the node A will propose some update of the transaction, check and sign, and pass it to the node B. Okay, and then they sign, and then you give it to the notary to sign, all these things. So this is very simple, but my point is that the way the transaction could be very complex, could be instead of two nodes, could be hundreds of nodes, or okay. So what the caller, I mean, that could be very complex, right, for those kind of transactions. So what caller does, they introduce this thing called a flow, such that what is this is the following is that once you find you have the business flow drawn down there, and then caller using this flow kind of feature, so I guide you through the implementation. Okay, we'll see example later on, and the very systematically to make sure that the whole in the smart contract, okay, all the actual code, okay, will be in a way that will make sure the privacy is going to be preserved, and make sure there won't be any kind of unnecessary or unforeseen or unexpected consequences. Okay, it's a very sort of, I would say, a very rigid. Sometimes it's rigid, but it's very in a way it guide you through. I mean, this is kind of important. I mean, I would like to contrast this with, like, let's say, Ethereum. See, in Ethereum, you run smart contract with Ethereum. It's very free flow. You can basically write anything style you want. Okay, but the problem with like those things is that when there's a lot of subtlety in the smart contract. Okay, if you don't handle it correctly, I mean, and it happened all over the case that people did not think of all the possible hole, and then you will see people, all these Ethereum's applications are being launched. Okay, and there are some unintended consequences. People find holes in it, allow you to steal money or expose the things. Okay, but in Corda, because they are designed very specifically for financial institution, and they know that all these things are very, very important. So they actually use this kind of flow feature to guide you through the smart contract implementation, so that you cannot do anything you want. Okay, because once you're allowed to do anything you want, then chances are you will introduce some kind of holes in it. Okay, okay. So this is the flow that's it's a feature of Corda. And again, the what Corda does is that, let's say you have this flow, right? These are some example. Let's say you could be issuing a token, you could be doing a mortgage, it could be crowdfunding, whatever. So you have the flow, okay, which is the business process, the transaction. Okay, then you feed that into Corda, right? Of course, then if you really want to make it live, I mean, there are a lot of things you have to talk about. You really have to do. You have to do the key management. You have to do messaging, your storage. You have the concurrency, peer discovery. So what Corda does is that this part, okay, so you can treat it as a black box. So once you fill in the flow, Corda will handle for you. Okay, all these things in the bottom, and then you can then you have the output, and then you can then read the ledger. Thing will be written on the ledger with all the output, and then you can audit it, you read it. But all the dirty work in the case done by Corda. Okay, all these things like messaging, storage, data distribution, these things. So Corda handle for you. So I think it's precisely this reason why people think that, let's say, compared to Hyperledger Fabric, Corda is much easier to use. Okay, because all these things, I think in Fabric you have to do it, handle yourself, but Corda handle for you. But of course, you might argue that the flexibility is not as great as in Fabric because the sort of Corda sort of force you in a certain way. But yeah, I would say that also have an advantage, mean that you are too free flow, right, of doing things. First of all, it's more difficult, and secondly, the chances are you might bring in some kind of unintended consequence or some holes. Okay, Corda is sort of try to minimize that. Okay. So in summary, okay, so Corda is a very unique blockchain platform that allow for private transactions, okay, the privacy being preserved between legally identifiable counterparty. Legally, in the sense that they actually allows you to attach the hash of the legal contract onto the smart contract, okay, and bind them together. And it's relatively much easier to use than compared to the other DLT platform, okay, while maintaining the benefit of traditional blockchain. Okay. So that is an overall introduction. Any question so far? I mean, if not, I will go a little bit more detail. Maybe I'll go to this first before I come up with the questions. So I'll go to the more deep down on how do you do this called a smart contract. Okay. So in a call they call it call DApp. Okay, call the application. Okay, but it's really a call the smart contract. So the important thing in a call DApp, there are three things. Okay, the three I would say there are three components. One is what I call state. One is a contract. One is called flow. Okay, these are the three most important component of a call app. Okay, I will go into more detail. Let's look at state. What's the state? Okay, state is normal. It's just it just contain all the data about the share fact at a specific point of time. Okay, I'll give you an example. Next slide on state. But the important thing is that once the state have been created, they cannot be changed. Okay, they're immutable. Okay. So and it will evolve in time. Okay, the state will evolve in time over time. So for example, let's say there is a transaction which is a IOU. So Alice is actually borrow money from Bob. Okay, they borrow £10. Okay, so you have the two participants, Alice and Bob. Okay, this is a example of a state. Okay, this is what I call IOU state. So you see in the state, it record at this particular point of time. Let's say right now that the share fact of this transaction. So it will include, for example, the maybe you assign identity. It will assign to you in this particular transaction who are the participants. Okay, what are the amount involved, and by what time you have to pay back the loan? What's the penalty? Okay, and so far the money hasn't been changed hand. Okay, so this is a example of an IOU state. Okay, the IOU state will contain all this data. Okay, and they are share. So IOU state their share amount between Alice and Bob. Okay, so you can see the all the information. Okay, with Alice and Bob are the same. Okay, they share all these things. Okay, so state represents share facts. Okay. The thing about privacy, as I want to see, I mean, the way how Corda handle is that let's say you have different party like from Alice, Bob, and the 5 party in there. Okay, and then there are different various transactions. Okay, like Bob will, let's say Alice is involved in transaction. So she will have state 1 and 7. Okay, because she's involved in 2 different transactions, and so forth. So the way that Corda, as I was mentioning, let's say between Alice and Bob, right? You notice that there's only one transaction between them. So there's only one state. So Alice and Bob will share state 1, for example. But whereas like say Bob will share state 5 and 6 with Carl, but then Alice will not able to see 5 and 6 because 5 and 6 are involved in other transaction, which Alice have no business in. Okay, so this is again to reemphasize how. So in the Bitcoin, right? Actually, the node, every node will see the whole ledger, right? But here in Corda, each node only see a subset of the ledger states. Okay, you don't see everything. Okay, so in other words, each node see different things according to what transaction they are involved in. Example, I mean, let's say you have a token stake. So this is an example. Actually, I will not run the code, but I just want to go through it. After this section, my colleague will come in. We'll go for an IOU stake example. You see the code for the IOU stake where one party borrow money from the other. So, for example, if a token stake means someone, an issuer issue some token. I think someone asked this question before. I mean, how do you handle issuing token on a call? That's very easy. So the stake will be you have who's the issuer, who's the owner. Owner meaning that the person who received the coin, what's the amount. So the two participants is issuer owner. Okay. Actually, I am not going to go through this, but later on, you have time, you can go through this exercise. Okay, to construct a token stake. It's very easy. Okay. It's probably the easiest type of state. Okay, so as I say, the stake can contain anything. So, for example, in the previous case, okay, when you issue coin or the bond money, right, the stake only contain money, right, for example. But what I'm trying to say, it's the stake can be very, very broad, right? And but one thing is that once it's become a certain state, will remain as, let's say, for example, you started as an IOU state, will remain as an IOU state. It's very rarely you change the IOU state to something else, some other state. So what else it contain? Well, it contain anything, like from not just money, could be bond, could be loan, could be reference paper, could be invoice, could be a lot of credit, could be accounting entry, could be contract, commercial bank, collateral, KYC data, bid offer, person information. So you can see this column can be very broad. I mean, your state can contain this kind of data. Okay, so you can have, that's why you can handle very, very different, various kind of transactions. So just to summarize on the state component of a Corda, show the on a need-to-know basis. Okay, and then the share facts are you representing your state, we call state. Okay. So actually, I did not go through this. That supposedly we talk about contracts there, but we didn't go through that. So that is state. So next thing I want to jump is the second component, which is called contract in Corda. So what contract on Corda? So obviously we want to handle transaction in Corda, right? So one thing is important is we have to tell you how the Corda blockchain or Corda ledger, how they update, how the ledger is going to update it. Okay, let's say now the input is some existent state. Okay, this is the input, and now there's some transaction happen, and it goes to a new state. Okay, so after the transaction, the output, okay, what it does is that the input will be classified as historic. Okay, historic means that would be no longer can be used. Okay, that's instead a new state will come up, which is called the output state. And this is how transaction evolve. Okay, from the input state to the output state. So once you have the output state, the input state becomes historic, and that will be sort of the record is still on the ledger, but you're not able to use it anymore. Like the input state. Okay. You can still find on the ledger. Okay, so the record's there. So as an example, let's say you go back to the IOU example, okay, which is that the IOU state represent the fact that Alice owned Bob, okay, £10. Okay, Alice borrowed £10 from Bob and is payable. The loan is supposed to be paid back on the 2017, March 31st. And then if there's a penalty, if there are late settlement, 20%. Daily is very high. So let's say that's the start. Let's say Alice, okay, at some point in time settled £5, so he returned £5 of the loan. Okay, so the original stake, okay, which is this one here, well, that would be noted as historic. Instead, a new stake will come out. A new stake would have said that Alice still own Bob £10 payable by these, but then Alice had paid Bob £5 already. Okay, so this is the new state. Okay, we share between Alice and Bob. Okay. Obviously, I mean, this can be expanded. Okay, so we could have input here and then output and go forth, and then you could even do it when it go on and some other late stage, some other input that will come from other transaction might come in. Okay, so that the whole involvement on the transaction could be very complicated. Okay, okay, you could combine different transactions together. For example, go back to IOU. Okay, let's go and look at how it evolved. Let's say, I mean, in the beginning of no agreement. Okay, that would be the first state, the first agreement. Okay, which is happening on the February 1st, and in that, it's really recalling the fact that Alice borrowed £10 from Bob. Okay, let's say a few weeks later, Alice paid Bob £5. So a new state have come out. Okay, because there's a transaction, which is Alice paid Bob £5. So that old state become historic. So the new state will encode the fact that Alice paid £5. And then all the way then you go on. The next transaction is on March 2nd. Okay, where the interest is charged. Okay, it's because Alice hasn't returned the whole £10. Okay, so at that date, the old state become historic. A new state come out, which is the fact that Alice is owe Bob interest. Okay. Okay, and then let's say the next day, let's say Alice finally decide to pay back the remaining £5 plus the £1 interest. Okay, so that the output, okay, agreement. So agreement expire and no more. Okay, the whole transaction finish, and then the previous state will be marked historic. Okay, so this is an example of how a state will sort of evolve. Okay, this is a simple example. But imagine any kind of transaction, okay, you can think of it this way. Okay, you have a input, okay, and something happens, some transaction. So a new output come out, the old input will be marked as historic, and then the output become the input for the next transaction. Okay. Now, but then sometimes transaction could be very ambiguous. Okay, let's say I have the input, which is of two state. One is a cash state, one is a bond or loan state, and then output is also a cash state and a bond state. What do you mean by ambiguous? If I just present you this diagram, okay, you have no idea which is the possibility is whether it's because that Alice had transferred some cash to Bob. Okay, that's one possibility. And then Bob paid coupon on the bond. Okay, so this is one possibility. Okay, so cash being transferred to pay the coupon. But also there also another possibility is that so here the owner become see the so let's see now. Okay, so here the arrow, you don't know the arrow, you know exactly what happened. Okay, how does the so even though they're cash and cash, I mean, how does it evolve? I mean, from the input to the output. So to do that, you have to put in the arrow in between, which are what we call command. So in encoder, okay, the command are the sort of the function to tell you what exactly in the contract what has happening. So for example, in this case, you'll be told that actually Alice has transferred cash to Bob, and the fact that in the bond state that the Alice have paid coupon to Bob, okay, on the bond, okay, and then so these are the command, okay. So whether it's let's say it's a bank, you could be the bank issuing cash, okay. Okay, that are the command that the caller will have a supply of this kind of command you can use, okay. And then of course the last step is how do you the contract will decide whether the transaction proposal are valid. Okay, for example, you look at this particular transaction proposal. So the input is a cash date, output is also another cash date. So in this particular thing, what it does is just add a transfer her $3 to Bob. Okay, so so the input the cash belong to Alice, the amount is $3, but after the transfer, the cash belong to Bob now, and the amount is $3. So what do you check, okay, in the contract? For example, in this case, you might want to, if this is transfer, you might want to check if this is has one cash input and one cash output, and also you have the transfer command. Of course, I mean, if the whole money being transferred, you have to check whether the cash in equal to cash out, and then you need to check whether the the cash owner, the input, whether they can sign, okay, whether they are authorized to sign this, okay, to this transfer. Okay, this is the thing you want to check. So the contract which will check this, okay, and will say no, it's valid. Okay. Now, but what happened? It could be the case that someone do the following, right? The original input that asks a £3, but then somehow you transfer, okay, that many dollar to Bob. So of course you can check this, but then you find out the cash input is not your cash output. So then the caller will throw an error and tell the transaction is not valid. Okay. So this will be handled by the caller contract. For example, like if this is a token, for example, the transaction, the contract will go the following, right? That in the beginning, there no input, right? There will be an issue command. Okay, you want to issue the token or money. Okay, the output will be a token state. So it will be one output, the amount should be positive. Okay. So here the thing you want to implement in the contract will be there will be no input, one output, one command. The output is the token state. The output amount is positive. Okay, the command is issue, and the issuer is required to sign it. And then the contract, of course, will try to go through and validate whether all these things are satisfied. If they're satisfied, then it will be it will pass to the notary to do the final validation. If the notary says okay, then you write it onto the ledger. Okay. So in summary, the contract is able to allow you to handle the transaction from going from the old input state to the new output state. Okay, and in the contract, in Corda, they have all these functions called command, which you can use to. Of course, you can also write your own command, but Corda already built in a library of such command. Okay, and then the command would basically tell you like who are required to sign, for example. I mean, that's one important thing the command will try to govern, like who should sign this thing. So the contract are the classes that implement the okay. And also, if the transaction is invalid, it will throw an error. Okay. So this is the contract encoder. And finally, you talk about the flow component. So here is an example of a flow that I just put it up previously, the slide. So you might have two nodes. Okay, this is the transaction. Okay, the flow. Okay, between A and B, and then finally you have to go to the notary to sign. Okay. So that's so in other words, you have a flow logic. So in encoder, you write your flow logic, but then once you've done that, then encoder will have what we call transaction builder they can call, and then we'll put this thing into a code that so for example, if we look at a token issue flow, what it does is that, first of all, you have to choose a notary. Then you build a transaction. So you write the contract here. Okay. And how do you do that? First of all, you create a state. Okay. The first thing always in any kind of writing this is to create, first of all, you decide what the flow is. Okay. And then you start building it. Then you have to decide what are the state. Okay. And each stage, input, output, the state. And then how to connect the different state. Okay. Through command. Okay. And then this is the code. This is the part you have to do if you're a coder developer. And once you have that, then you put it onto the your coder application. Of course, then you can verify the transaction, sign the transaction, and then pass it to the notary. They sign it to prevent double spending, all these things, and then record the transaction, and then pass it back to you. Okay, that is sort of how the whole flow. Okay, if you're building, let's say, a simple token issuing transaction. Okay, here I'm not going to go through here because my colleague will come on and go through a IOU state and go through these in more detail. But you can go back to this to look at this exercise. Okay. So let me summarize what the flow. So the flow is to automate the process, the transaction process, so as to update the ledger. Okay. The flow will be class. They will implement the flow logic. Okay. And then you use the transaction builder to construct the transaction, and that's the part you have to do, which is this part here. Okay, so that is basically my high-level introduction to Corda. So let me stop here and see if anyone have any questions. So after my colleague will come up and he will actually go through the more detail, including make sure that you have downloaded correctly the Corda, all the from the open source, all the different component, and then he will go down to an IOU state and actually go down to the actual coding, and then will guide you through. I think he will first of all he will go for one example, and then let's see how much time left. He will try to guide you, allow you to try to develop one such contract. Okay. Using Corda. Okay.
Hello.
So that's the game plan. Yep.
Yeah. My question is, can you explain how to need to know basis works again?
The what?
The need to know basis.
Need to know basis mean what does that mean? It's because we go back to that. Let me go back to that particular slide.
Sure.
Okay. Like for example, let's say Titan Technology has a transaction with Colorado, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So of course, since they are the counterparty, they have to know what's going on, right? Okay.
So,
but one here in this transaction, if Bay will not know anything, that means they need to know. So Bay transaction doesn't have a need to know.
If a transaction happened between Titan Technology Partners and Colorado Rivers Authority, then does Bay Transcorp Inc. know about that?
No, they don't know.
No. So it's only between the concerning parties.
Yeah. Unless somehow at a later stage it also involves Bay Transcorp, then they will come in and know his part.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Like the band map showed in a slide, right?
Sorry, which one? Which one? See, you see, this is very different from Bitcoin. Bitcoin, let's say, that's to everyone will know, right? But in Corda, we don't do that.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So anymore? So As I want to say, to actually write the call tab is these are the three things: the stake, the contract, and the flow. I mean, those are the three most important things. Write any kind of transaction. But very broad, because the stake can be very broad, right? Any more questions or comments? Or? If not, then maybe I will pass this to my colleague, Sean. He will lead you to the detail of Corda. Okay, let me get out. So maybe Sean can start his part.
Thank you, Lawrence. Okay, take over the screen. Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sean. I will go through IOU example and IOU example with you. First of all, please check if you have all these prerequisites installed. I've put the installation guide PDF file on this channel. I saw some of you have already finished that, and in that file we have put a link, which is the Coder Bootcamp, which is the token example that Lawrence has just gone through. So maybe I should repeat about the prerequisites that please install the Java JDK version 8 because Coder did not support over Java 9 or above version. And please prepare a IDE, not necessarily be IntelliJ, but it is recommended by Coder. Also, if you want, you can install Git, but that is not a must. So today's agenda is as follows. We will talk about the code app design, and we will implement these four things, these four main components of code app. And finally, after we have implemented these four components, we'll try to run a code app with front end, okay, a web front end. Today we will be using this material. Today we will be using this material. If you have already installed Git, you can simply use a command prompt to go to the location that you want to install. Install here. If you do not if you haven't installed Git, you can simply go to this link. I will post it on the chat right now. Oh, okay. So if you are not using the Git to clone the file, you may directly go to the link and clone the download the zip and unzip it. Okay, I'll go to the Slack group and post it too in the channel. Oh, sorry, Gabriel already posted for me. Okay. So if you have any questions, please raise your hand. I will wait for some of you have cloned the file to the material first. because we will go through this together. Okay, if you have finished cloning the material, please open it with the IDE that you want to use. I will be using the IntelliJ. So after you open the material, you will see something like this. Okay, maybe I adjust the resolution a bit to enlarge the font size. Okay, so you will see something like this. Okay, this is the following step is very important, so please be careful. Okay, click on File. You'll see the tab Project Structure. Okay, please select the SDK, the Java SDK that you have downloaded. Pay attention to the version which need to be above 171. Click Apply. Okay. The second things, setting. Search for colon. Looking for the tab colon compiler. .8 we'll be using. And please import the radio project too. Okay, while we are waiting for the project to be imported, because the first time for the import that will take a longer time. So while we are waiting, let's talk about what the code app that we are going to build in this section. So this is the scenario as talked by Lawrence, which we will be implementing a situation that we can create and send IOUs to other parties. Okay. For a code app, it includes the 4 components: state, contract, and transaction and flow. Okay. For the states of IOU states, this is how it looks like. We have a recipient, with a sender, and a value, and also include the participant, which are the sender and recipient. This part, as you may remember, the token example, it is not included in that token state. But in this situation, we need to include this part, which is a reference to the contract that we are going to use.
Would the SDK 11 be a problem?
No, you cannot use the Java SDK. Sorry, you cannot use the 11 because it is only Coda only support JDK 8. So please install the JDK 8 version. And if you have also installed JDK 11, please be careful when you select the JDK version here. Okay, let's talk about the contract. Yeah, so as I've just talked about, that this IOU contract reference is to reference which contract that state is referred to. We will see more clearly when we implement the in the coding part. So this is the transaction that we need to have some constraint in the contract, right? So this is what we are looking for: no input, one input, and include two the both signatures from sender and recipients. Okay, this is the flow of the token stake sample. But what we are going to do today is something like this, very similar to that. Actually, there is free flow, but I will go through the issue flow with you. Okay. So this is the approach that we're going to do to use today. Firstly, we'll implement the state and contract, and then the flow, and we will use a test-driven development approach, which we'll see the test case first, and then implement on the file. So let's take a look if the Gradle project is ready. Okay. So, okay, yes. If you have problems in catching up, please raise your hand. Okay. So let's see what's included in this material first. You can see there is a Java source and a Kotlin source. As you may know, that Code is using Kotlin to develop actually, but today we will go through. But it also supports the Java version 2. So as we have some supporting material on Java, therefore we will keep it simple to use the Java source today. So let's see what's included. This is what we've just called the approach that we're using, the test-driven development approach. So there will be a test file and a main file. Okay. As you can see, contract, flow, and states. Firstly, we will go through the state first. Okay. Also open the IOU state. Okay. Here you can see there's API, contract, flow, plugin, and state. Instead of just state, flow, and contract, actually, the API and plugin is used for us to connect with the front end later when we deploy the project. We will talk about that later. So okay. Maybe the import is some problem. Let me check another version. Please wait a second. Okay. Let me check. Okay. Let me clone their material again. Maybe we have I've crushed their program. Okay. Okay. So if you have the same situation that I have here, so please clone the project again. Okay, I'll catch up with the progress. Okay. State. Okay. Please open these two files first, the IOU state test and the IOU state of Java. Okay. As this is a test-driven approach, let's rate what the test asks us to do first. So the first task is that we need to add an amount property in our state file. Okay, what should we do then? We are doing something like this. Add a variable amount. This amount type is provided by a coder. Okay. So add this in the constructor too. Okay. Let's check if this passed the first test. Okay. Okay, so the next two tasks is very similar. Add a lender and add a borrower property. Something like this. Party is also a type that given by coder. Lender. Sorry. Oh.
Source. What is the source code for?
What is the source? Sorry. Wait a minute. I'm finding the chat window. Oh, this is a template for learning how to code coder. If you want to develop your own coder, you can how to say it? Let's call it reference from this structure. If you want to develop your own coder, yeah. Sorry, for okay. Also add them into the constructor. The next task is about adding a property, but as you can see, the instruction is more complicated. Okay, actually, what is asked us to do is to also initialize the value of paid, okay, to 0, which is because when what we are doing is a IOU and IOU state. So if this paid variable need to match the currency that the amounts have. Therefore, we need to do something like this. Okay. Create it first. Then in the constructor,